Shotgun Spratling and Dan Weber here for Instant Analysis after a tale of two press conferences here with Pat Haden and Clay Helton speaking. Clay Helton speaking about today's practice, which seemed to go pretty well, it seemed like, Dan.
I think Clay basically, it's Notre Dame week. You've got to talk about, being part of this great rivalry. I think he was kind of talking about from Sunday on, where he was accepted by the team. He mentioned the big ovation that he got and how he'll never forget that. He talked a lot about how this happened 2 years ago, and he's harking back a lot to what Ed Orgeron did, and how the emphasis is not just on X's and O's, but on being a family, on being there to support one another, on putting your arm around somebody, and having, for example, tonight they're going to do one of those team dinners, and kind of that kind of bonding, and they did things start today, for example, in practice where they were in a big tight huddle at Brian Kennedy Field, and we couldn't tell what they were doing. Were they doing a dance contest? Well, they were doing one-on-one board drill, big guys on big guys and linebackers on tight ends and all that, and they had kickers even got in on it, and so they had a good time. But it was one of those, and you remember, I've seen this before 2 years ago.
Yeah, definitely the family dinners was one thing that stood out to me there. It seems like he definitely is harkening back to those days, and the way that Ed Orgeron was able to bring the team together after an incident, and that's probably the best way to potentially go about it, is kind of the us against the world mentality, and have that going on. He did give up a couple of injury updates with Stephen Mitchell unlikely to play, Clay Helton definitely going to be out, but Biggie Marshall and Darius Rogers should be back for the game as well. Overall, just how did the team seem to you, the atmosphere of the team out there today?
I think they're still trying to find their way. He was happy, called it competition Tuesday, something I don't think we've heard since Pete was here. Or I guess Ed did it as well, but thought they competed well. I thought they ran the ball pretty decently. I didn't think they threw the ball very well today. I think they're kind of trying to figure out, how do we do this? How do we get through this? This has got to be kind of a shock to your system as far as, as a football player and as part of this team and this week. So, I just think Clay was very enthusiastic and positive. And what else can he be, at this point in time? And just we'll see where this goes. But I don't think today was one of the great practices in USC football history.
Well, Clay did say towards the end of his press conference that he wants to be the head coach. We'll see how that whole thing plays out later in the year when that comes. He did make a couple announcements on the coaching staff front with Marcus Tuiasosopo taking over the quarterbacking coach duties, and Lenny Vander May, taking over, becoming the tight ends coach, stepping up from a volunteer spot. So there'll be a couple of new faces on the bios, I guess, on the website, but nothing new as far as bringing anyone in from the outside. Then we turned it over to Pat Haden. Clay Helton is a guy that you would want to play for, it sounds like. But then Pat Haden takes over and talked about the entire situation with Sark and trying to notify him and determination and everything else. What did you kind of take away from what Pat Haden had to say?
He was pretty much a full-throated defense of Pat Haden, and answering all of the critics that have popped up over the last couple of days, and the extremely strong criticism of not doing your job, not vetting Sark. This is the second straight, coach, third interim coach that he's had to deal with, fourth if you count Clay twice. Somebody mentioned that when they play, chances are, when they play UCLA and Notre Dame next year, there will have been 5 different USC head football coaches in 5 years. That's just astonishing. While Pat wouldn't go into the details of the coaching search, said we've got a big game this week, wouldn't talk about anything, timing people, who's going to make that decision, how they're going to make that decision. It's clear that's going to be part of going forward here. It's going to be part of what Clay's trying to do and trying to win the job. And it was what Ed wanted to do a couple of years ago. And that always makes that difficult when you go back and say, we want to do what Ed did, and what Ed did wasn't good enough for Ed to get the job, and they hired somebody who they had to fire. And that's a problem, but they weren't backing off. Pat talked about all the other things that have happened in the last 5 years that he says, this is really, we've done a really good job here. But said, he owns the Sark decision, said they checked him out completely, had no indication that any of the things that have turned up since then were happening. There were people in the room that absolutely didn't agree with him. And he basically said, well, we have a difference of opinion. But he said, no, we did our job. We completely vetted him, and it just didn't work out.
Yeah, it seemed like he kind of shifted the blame and that area to the search firms and the NCAA background checks.
Another one, I think, is the fact that they're going to shift the blame a little bit to Washington, and saying things like, well, you got all this information and all this evidence that's come out about what happened in Washington, and yet Washington didn't do anything. So it's like, well, he was never under any disciplinary issues, at Washington. So yeah, there was some blame shifting. I don't think any question about that.
And one of the biggest pieces of news that people were probably most interested about with the potential new hire coming is that Pat Haden says that he's going to be the one to make that choice.
Sounded like
Didn't come straight out and say it,
and I think
said he planned to be around.
I think he's going to be around. I don't think it'll go like last time at all. I think they can't afford it to go like last time at all. I think they have to open up how they do things, and they have to open it up to the opinions they get, the input they get. It can't be just, a small group of people. And whether that's all been determined, or whether Pat's going to be the one to determine how this search goes forward. That may not have all been, decided yet. But I think it will not be like last time.
And Pat Haden said he tried to reach out to Coach Sark to inform him directly. That didn't work out. He tried a couple different people, did not happen. So he sent the contract, the termination of his contract, to his agent and to Sark, but he said he has not spoken to him yet, even though he's tried multiple times.
You're talking about harking back. There you go to the Mike Garrett firing of John Robinson, where you left it on the answering machine. Whether this one has, so Pat's now got an airport tarmac firing and a letter emailed to the agent. So I think it was clear he wanted to meet with Sark, and Sark wasn't available to be met with.
Well, hopefully the hire will be made via carrier pigeon, maybe, whatever it may take. But that's going to be it for me, Shotgun Spratling, and Dan Weber here with the instant analysis after the press conference. Hopefully tomorrow we'll get back to straight football talk and seeing what the Trojans can do leading up to the Notre Dame game. For more, keep it locked in at uscfootball.com.